Welcome to First Alarm Family First. I'm Jen Herrera, as always, alongside Carolyn Acosta. We have a very special guest today for episode 10. Can you believe it's episode 10?
I can't believe it.
This is cool.
This is amazing.
I mean, it's your lucky day. Senator
really
Rene Garcia with us today on this momentous occasion. Thank you so much for being here.
No, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys, and appreciate the work that you're doing to make sure that we bring awareness to mental health, not only for first responders, but for everyone in this community. So I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you for everything. I remember I first met you at one of your cafecitos that you have that I think is amazing. I think it's a great way to connect with the community. And I saw it on social media, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go to this. And you were so kind and so approachable and so generous to take some time and sit with me. And that's when I explained that I started a foundation. My husband recently passed away. And you were just, I was taken back about how, because usually you think about politicians and you're like, yeah, they're probably like cold and they don't want to know, they really don't want to hear like too much complaining. But I was so taken back at how just approachable you are. And you were my first supporter for First Alarm. And I'm just so grateful.
Yeah,
you are. Yeah, I was so grateful. And then I found out too that you were also at my husband's funeral, which was, it hit me. And I was just it was so nice to hear that you guys are really doing so much for the community, but you're also, a part of like our world. You come in and you really do show up.
No, Carolyn, and I remember that first meeting, and it was a cafecito in Miami Lakes. Mm-hmm. And actually, I remember the night before I didn't sleep all that much. I had a toss and turn that night before, and I wanted to make sure that when we got there, I think I even told you that. It was rough. It was a rough night, but it was important for me to listen to you. And I think it's important for us as public officials to give people the time that they deserve, because we are there to representing them. We're a constitutional republic, and we are elected by the people to service them. And a lot of us in this business sometimes forget that. And I hope that I have a great group of people around me that keep me very grounded. And I'm glad that I do. A lot of strong women around me that keep me grounded at all times.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Trust me. And I'll have two more. Wait a minute.
You signed up for this.
Yes, but it's important. It's important to, the capacitos that I do, it's important for me to keep the doors open of our district office. We don't always have the time because you still have to work, and you have your family commitments, you have your work commitments, and it's important for me to make sure that the public always has access to our office and to me and to our county and to our state. So that's why I do what I do, and I appreciate you taking the time that day to come to talk to me. And this is why we're doing all these things we're doing in mental health, and the synergies are there. And you're your husband, and it's a great thing that you're doing, turning such a terrible situation into something so positive. So I appreciate you, and I look up to you. You have no idea how much I look up to you through the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, Senator.
You're an example for so many.
She really is.
I've told her that over and over and over again. Even, I don't know that we've shared this on here, but even one of my own daughters, who's 15, so my kids aren't little, they get it. They said watching, they watch some of the shows, and they're like, how does she do it, Mom? You wouldn't be able to do it. So truly, your strength is admirable. Okay, I'm going to lighten things up a little bit. As someone who was born and raised in Hialeah, okay, you got your start in politics in Hialeah. Yes. So when I was doing my research for this interview, I'm not going to lie, I kind of chuckled. I'm like, here we are, a politician from Hialeah, because sometimes there's a little bit of a reputation that comes with that, mainly from back in the day.
Right.
I have to say. With that said, all jokes aside, you are doing amazing things, as we've talked about. Why mental health, Senator? Why is this so important to you?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you that I consider myself a public servant, not a politician. So I'll tell you that. There's a very big difference between politicians and public servants. Some of my friends chuckle at that, but the reality is that I really do believe in giving back to the community. Like everything that I've been able to accomplish publicly and professionally has been because of the hardworking people of Northwest State, particularly the people of Hialeah. So for me, it's a badge of honor to represent the hardworking people of this community. And my biggest fear is to disappoint them or ever let them down, and that's why I work so hard on making sure that when I govern with integrity and honesty and transparency, and I try to do that to try to debunk some of the jokes that have come out of Hialeah politics. That's why I try to do that. And even in Tallahassee, when I was elected to the legislature, we have, especially Hispanics and Cuban Americans, there's a common misnomer so much that we're always late to things. No, we're never late to anything. But I want to make sure that I was always on time to the committee meetings, just to make sure I debunk some of that. But yeah, we're always late to everything, so it is what it is. But when I get involved in politics, because I think I want to get back. I ran for the city council when I was 21 years old, and I didn't get elected at 21. I like saying that story. I did not get elected. Some people say you lost, but I didn't lose because I learned a lot about politics and campaigning and so forth. And back then, the mayor was Raul Martinez, and a very strong, polarizing figure, but he did many good things for the city of Hialeah, and I look up to him. I really do. I've looked up to him, and I appreciate his help. And then 2 years later, I ran for the city council, and I got elected, and the rest is history, right? That's how I started my political career. And then when I got to the legislature, you asked me the question about mental health. I'm give you a big political answer here. But mental health for me, I realized when I was in the legislature, I realized that mental health was something that was not being addressed. I've been in healthcare for many years, working in both professionally and in my public life. And the one area that I noticed that wasn't getting enough attention was mental health. And this is before everything that's happened now, before COVID. And, mental health and substance abuse. And, I have a nephew. That's a whole other, that's that question later on. But the reality is that there was a lot that needed to be done. And we wrote the mental health laws in Tallahassee. I had not been touched for 25 years, working with the Department of Health and working with different healthcare agencies. And has become a passion of mine to make sure that we bring parity to the issue of mental health.
Wow. And in your opinion, why is it important to especially focus on mental health for our first responders?
Look, first responders, unfortunately for them and fortunately for us, they get the brunt of every accident. They get the brunt of every serious issue in our community. Police, when police storm in, as SWAT, the things that they see, the things that they have to do to keep us safe. And then our firefighters the same way. With our firefighters put their lives in the line to rescue ours. The car accidents that they witness, it's very sad what they're exposed to. But those are just the realities. And we thank God that they're exposed to those things because they keep that away from us and they keep us safe. And when we call 911, we expect them to be there. At our hardest moments, we expect them to be there to help us. So they get exposed to all these different issues. And unfortunately, throughout many years, we think that they're superheroes, that they could overcome all this without having any help, counseling, or treatment. And for years, I think our first responders have suffered from the lack of attention to their needs while they're taking care of everyone else's needs. And I think the world is turning a little bit now, and especially with what you're doing, bringing a lot of attention and light to the issue of first responders is something that we need to do a little bit more and do a better job at it.
Right.
Can you give us the details for myself and perhaps for our viewers? You said for the first time in 25 years, mental health laws is what you were advocating for in Tallahassee.
Right.
What does that mean? What does that include?
Well, what we did in Tallahassee is what we did was we wrote the mental health laws, mental health and substance abuse, and it's usually the behavioral health laws. So sometimes you hear people using behavioral health and mental health and substance abuse all interchangeably, but it's really behavioral health all in general. We wrote those laws because they weren't touched for so long, and actually I did it with the help of Judge Leifman, who is a judge here in Miami-Dade County who deals a lot in the arena of mental health and homelessness and so forth, and he is the one that always brought the issue to light for me. And what we were trying to do is make sure that there was a no wrong door policy, because when it comes to mental health and substance abuse, before you had mental health beds, substance abuse beds, and if you came into a facility and you had a substance abuse problem, but there was a mental health bed available, you could not use that bed. Everything was in silos. So we try to make sure that if you walked into a facility, whether a behavioral health issue a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue, you'll be able to get the treatment that you needed. And then hopefully from there, what we try to do, make sure that with that no wrong door policy, you can then subsequently get treatment at different facilities.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we did. We did a unique identifying number, making sure that we can track people as they go through the system, because unfortunately, especially with the homeless population, there was no way of keeping track of where they were getting services and so forth, and then increase the funding that was coming down for behavioral health services.
Okay. Are there any upcoming like initiatives or projects that maybe they're working on that you know of to benefit first responders and maybe expand their mental health resources?
Well, after Alex's unfortunate situation, we had conversations with the fire chief. You came into the picture, and we started making sure that we focus more on our first responders. Our fire chief was very confident of the work that we were doing at making sure we identified individuals or firefighters and more firefighters. Let me talk about firefighters. He spoke to him because now we have a new sheriff, and she is all about mental health as well. But I did have a conversation with the chief, and he recognized he was very hurt because he goes, God, I missed it.
Yeah.
It really affected him. It affected him to the point that he took it very personal. And he goes, how could I miss this with everything that we're doing? And I think with your work, with having the partners, what do we call them?
To breaking the stigma and having
No, I do work making sure that we have.
the buddy system.
The buddy system. That's what it is.
Yes,
The buddy
yes,
system.
yes. Yeah.
I'm paying attention. I'm paying attention to the buddy system, and that's something that I think is really important.
Yeah.
So I think now through our behavioral health board that we established at the county, we wanted to make sure that actually because of you, we make sure to include someone from the fire department and someone who people that understand PTSD as well. And you're also on that board as well, so we can keep on advocating for it.
Yes.
I just want to let everybody know, as far as the buddy system that the senator is referring to, and Major Baracella, who was on with us from the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office last week, talked about it already being in place for the Sheriff's Office and as far as new recruits. But what the buddy system is, and Carolyn and I have met with the chief to talk about it, it's for new fire recruits who come on being teamed up with a veteran family like Carolyn, someone who lived with a firefighter for 20 plus years. My husband's a firefighter. My father's a retired firefighter. So teaming up with a family who knows this who knows this career and everything that it comes with. So we're hoping, right? We're hoping that it gets put into place. The steps are in place, and looking forward to speaking not only to new recruits, but to be there for the spouses and the family members of these new recruits. Because as we often say, it's not necessarily the first responders who are going to go and ask for help. Oftentimes it's their loved ones who are going to say, hey, something's going on. They're not sleeping. They've lost weight. We need to do something. Somebody perhaps is too proud or doesn't realize that they have an issue, and they're going to make that phone call and they're going to reach out. And then that's why the buddy system ideally will be put in place. And I want to commend the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office again, because they have something like that already in place. If you don't mind, you briefly mentioned a nephew with mental health. Did that open your eyes to, because it hits personally, right? So we can be a public servant, we can be a politician, but when something hits close to home, we all know it motivates us to help even more.
Well, look, what happened with me is that my nephew at that time had more of a substance abuse problem. And I became a surrogate father for my nephew, and I learned a lot about substance abuse and the trials and tribulation, because when someone has, I'm going to use substance abuse and mental health now interchangeably as well. It's not just a problem for that individual. It's a problem that affects the entire family.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when it comes to substance abuse and depending on the level. So I start looking at the laws of substance abuse because of him. Yes, I did. And then that's when we wrapped around mental health. And I'll tell you this, years later, after we wrote the laws, and I'm down here in Miami-Dade County, and I was already a commissioner, 4 years ago, my nephew had his first mental health crisis. Little did I know that after rewriting all these laws that I was going to be affected by it. So I didn't do it thinking that I was going to need it. My nephew was substance abuse. It's something completely different. We were able to stabilize and we were fine. And then when he had this crisis, I realized that everything that I had done in Tallahassee wasn't enough. I realized that more needed to be done. We did this no wrong door policy. We did a unique identifying number. We increased the number of dollars and beds and facilities. But that wasn't enough, because when I needed to access the system, when I needed help for a family member, think about this. I am the one that helped rewrite the laws. I am the one that, well, I say I, but we collectively, I was the chairman at that time. I hate saying I because no one does anything by themselves. You always do it as a group. So when we wrote all these laws, now as chairman, I needed help for my family. And it was so difficult to try to get help. It was so hard for me. I went from place to place to place, and places that I even helped fund, and they couldn't actually help me because
why? Why? Why?
I don't know what the answer is. I don't know why. It was too much of a complicated case, because he had substance abuse and mental health issues, and some said, oh no, we don't do this, we don't do this, we don't do that, and it became very complicated for me. So I ended up having to put him in a partial hospitalization facility up in Broward. And ended up costing us about $30,000 out of our pocket to tell my, and I'll do it again. I have no problem doing it.
Of course.
But I realized at that point that thank God that I have the means to be able to do this. Actually, I had to go into my savings. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I had to go into my savings. It's expensive. So I went into my savings and we did this. And then after he came out of there, I had some friends at Recovery Unplugged, who is a substance abuse provider up in, and I'm mentioning them because they did a great job.
Yeah.
They did a lot of substance abuse, and because of him, they brought in a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and they started to treat individuals with mental health because of him, because his biggest problem was that. So that is what led me through this charge, and I realized that more needs to be done. So if I've been struggling with this, I can only imagine what everyone else out there who has no access, who doesn't have the connections or relationships, what are they suffering with? And again, it's not just the individual that suffers with it, not the immediate family, especially when it comes to mental health or substance abuse both. It's just everyone in the family suffers. And we need to make sure we have those services available, not only for the immediate family member, the person that's sick, but for everyone else.
Yeah. And I know you've said in the past, I've heard you say, is that everyone could be one crisis away from having a mental breakdown, or,
I really believe that.
It really hit home to anybody at any time. So no one's like immune to this.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you come from. If you have an education, you don't have education, what race. It's one of those things that is very unpredictable, and, we should have more of those resources available, and you shouldn't have to dig into your savings to be able to access this.
Is that one of the reasons that having to hop around and still coming up with nothing that, I'm not sure if I'm getting the name right, the Mental Health Advisory Board that Carolyn sits on, is that one of the reasons? Because I was in one of those meetings, and you had people from a ton of different organizations from Miami-Dade County. Is that one of the reasons you've pulled this amazing group of people together?
Yes, I want to make sure that families have a resource. Where can they go? Right now, you call one place, you got another place. There's a resource packet out there. I think there's a booklet out there with all wrong phone numbers. We want to make sure that we collect all the resources that are available in Miami-Dade County, even in Broward, because Broward has other specialty services that we don't have down here, like partial hospitalization and so forth. But I want to make sure that we collect them all and give the most accurate information to our residents so they know where to go. Yes, and right now, if I jump from place to place to place, knowing the people and the providers, I can't imagine what someone who doesn't have access, doesn't understand the language, or doesn't understand the system, how do they get help? Yeah. And I think this is why a lot of people fall through the cracks. And I do believe that we are all, me included, all of us are one crisis away from having a mental health issue. And it could be anything. It could be from a divorce, a loss of a job, depression, whatever it is. We're just what that one crisis away from having a breakdown. And this is why I think it's something that we should all take interest in. And we see what's happening in Washington, D.C. We see conversations in Tallahassee, but we have to do a better job for our community, for our first responders. Absolutely, we should always put them at the forefront. I always think, when it comes to our servicemen and women, from the military to fire and police, we should always put them at the forefront because they're the ones that are protecting us.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And we know that, you said falling through the cracks, and we know, and we've talked about this with several people, days and hours make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So if someone feels themselves in a vulnerable state and they're not in the right mental capacity to handle anything, and then they're hopping around calling 4 different facilities and like, okay, no, we're for substance abuse. Okay, no, we're for this, we're for that. It was frustrating for you. Imagine for someone who's in that state of mind.
Yes. No, it is. It's difficult. And then you wonder why people do things, and you see, and look, and one of the things that I realize if you look throughout our country right now, when you see all these mass shootings, the one thing, the common denominator is it's mental health.
Right.
It's either they had a mental health crisis or they have a lack of a mental health diagnosis. And that's where we need to get people in, and making sure that we have the resources available to get them in, get them tested, and try to get them the right, because it takes a while. Listen, when you have anyone that has any mental health, has a mental health crisis, have a mental health disorder, it takes a while to get the right medication. There's a lot behind it, and the sooner you catch it, the better it may be. And making sure that you have the right peer specialist. And I say peer, we usually use peer counselors, but peer specialists. And this is why I think the buddy system is amazing, because you don't have to identify someone, because then you eliminate the stigma. Just make sure that you train some police officers, have some police officers or firefighters trained with behavioral health or mental health expertise, so they can start identifying people, their colleagues, and then try to team up with them. And I think that'll work great when it comes to first responders.
Right, like that continuous education for the leaders and stuff within
Exactly.
the department.
And I think, the biggest message, and we've touched on it, we've kind of danced around it, is that mental health issues don't discriminate. We've talked about homeless, we've talked about people with substance abuse, and then we've talked to our first responders. I mean, I think we've said it before. Alex is the last person in the world who anybody would have thought would have done what he did. What's next? What's your goal when it comes to mental health? If you had to say one thing that you want to see happen and that you're going to help make happen, what would that be?
I want to make sure that everyone in Miami-Dade County, every single family, is not intimidated by the system. I want to make sure that people know where to go and get resources. I want to make sure that we have a system that is a quality system available. Look, I have funded programs in the past when I was in the legislature, and now when I was in the process of helping my nephew, I went to certain facilities and I was like, what is this? It almost looked like a prison. And then you wonder why people don't want to go get services, because why am I going to want to go get services in a subpar facility where they're warehousing individuals? And I say warehousing is such a bad word, but it's just the fact. And then, so professionals, why would you want to do, you're not going to put yourself in that situation. So that's why a lot of people hold themselves back and don't share what they're feeling, and the fear that they're going to be put in one of these places. So I think the first step is to make sure that we have good facilities with quality care, and we should treat individuals with behavioral health with respect, and treat them like we treat any other patients with any other diagnosis. If you have cancer, if you have HIV or diabetes, whatever it is, we treat people with respect because they're sick. When it comes to behavioral health and mental health, we actually don't. And I think that's a part of where the stigma comes from. It's like, oh, yeah, mental, what is, no.
Yeah, there's still a lot of judgment. There's still a lot of judgment.
You're weak. No, weak, no. I've been going through, I think it's quite the opposite. You've been dealing with all these issues quietly and by yourself.
Right.
That in itself is strength, but it gets to a point where you break down, and we have to make sure that we get people the help and services before they have that crisis. Make sure that it's okay to go and ask for help before the crisis happens. If we can do that before, whether it's in behavior, whether it's with our first responders or our kids in school, I think we could start turning the curve and trying to making sure that people could start getting services quicker. And this is what my goal is. My goal really is to ensure that we have a system that is accessible and available to anyone that needs it.
I love that. Yes.
I want to just take a moment, kind of take it in where we're sitting right now, because preparing for this show, I saw that Grant, who is a huge part, obviously, here at Community Newspaper, he kind of inspired you, Grant Miller, to be what you are today, this public servant that you are today.
Yes, absolutely. Grant, I owe it to Grant. A big part of it, I owe it to Grant. The first time I ever went to Tallahassee, I went to a Dade Days in Tallahassee. And Dade Days is with Miami-Dade County elected officials, public servants, advocates. They get on a plane and they go up to Tallahassee to advocate for their issues. First time I went to Tallahassee was on one of those days that Grant sponsored for me, because Eloise Rodriguez used to work with Grant, and I was going to Miami-Dade College with her, and actually I was in North Campus, she was in Kendall Campus. We became friends through Jessica. I can't remember all this. Florida Junior College Association, Student Government Association, and we were part of that, and we became friends, and that's how I got to Tallahassee. And I owe it to Grant because I really got the bug when I was 21 years old. Then I realized, wow, this is how the state legislature works. Wow, I met all these different folks from Miami-Dade County, and shortly after that, I ran for office, believe it or not. That's the first time I ran. So the catalyst was, so you guys have to blame Grant on this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have me. So.
And from Tallahassee to D.C., you were just in D.C.
Yes.
It was a big week,
Yes,
we
it was.
know. Putting together the gala for
Right.
Miami-Dade County. How was that?
Well, we put together, Lauren's back there, and I have to thank Lauren. We put together the Miami-Dade Beach Ball, and I think it was important for us to recognize the efforts of Miami-Dade County in this last election, and it's to make sure that the people in Washington, D.C. know that we mean business. You know, we have a lieutenant governor from Miami-Dade County. We have the commissioner of education here in Florida from Miami-Dade County. The speaker of the Florida House is from Miami-Dade County. We have these Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, who is a cardinal. Cardinal means that they're an appropriator from Miami-Dade County. And now we have Marco Rubio.
I was just going to say, let's not bury the lead here.
Yes. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is from Miami-Dade County. So for me, it was not about me, it was about our community and making sure that we showcase the amount of talent that we have coming out of Miami-Dade County. And I don't want the people, our friends in Washington, D.C. to forget about us. And I want to make sure that when we ask for funds, we get the funds delivered to our community. So that was a big deal. That was the main reason why.
No, there's a lot of important players, big players right now.
Yeah, listen, it's pretty amazing. It really is from South Florida. It really is all over. Now, I think we should be proud. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It's not about that. No. It's about who they are, where they come from, and that they understand us.
Yeah.
You know, they understand the unique diversity of our community. They understand the flavor. They understand what we're all about. Because a lot of people from outside of our community don't understand us. You know, in South Florida, they don't understand from Palm Beach down. The further down you go, the less they understand us. Especially Broward and Dade. It's like, what are those people doing? But we're very unique, and we've done. You know, we're doing a lot of good things down here. And I think it was time to celebrate that diversity that we bring to this community.
Yeah, well, we are fortunate to have you representing us as well. Thank you so much for being here.
No, I thank you. Listen, I really do thank you guys for what you're doing. And again, I know we started off with that, but thank you for turning such a negative situation in your life, turning into such a positive for others. And I think we're put on this earth to help one another. And I think a lot of us forget that. And that's what my guiding light has always been. And that's the reason that I stay around for so long, because I really do love and I love helping others and giving back. And I thank you for doing that. And I thank you for encouraging me and for making sure that we keep our first responders at the forefront, because until you came around, we didn't have a first responder on our board. So I thank you. I appreciate you for that. It's all you.
Thank you. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you are part of our lives here, because you are making a difference and you're helping, me also make a difference.
And it all started over some cafecito.
That's a good start.
Incredibly South Florida. Thank you guys for
Thank
walking.
you.
We should say that. Reminder, March 10th is our inaugural fundraiser.
Yes.
It's taking place at Anthony's Runway 84, which is not in Miami-Dade County. It's in Fort Lauderdale, but you can drive a little bit farther north.
Actually, it's closer to me. I'm in Hialeah. I'm in Hialeah. Go right there.
Come on, Hialeah, Miami Lakes, you're practically
Right
Broward.
there. Right there.
We encourage all of
Personally
you.
inviting you.
Yeah.
Love for you guys to be there.
She's inviting me because I have to give money now. So I'm good. I'm happy to give money.
That's okay. You know how this works.
Yeah, I know how it works. I'm good.
March 10th, if you are interested in going and perhaps sponsoring or just being one of our guests, the information, just hit us up on Instagram. You have our handles there. As always, again, thank you for being here and sound the alarm.
Save a life.
We'll see you next time, guys.
Thank you.